does not crease, like in any sense of that word. I was shocked. Hi you guys, welcome back to the Clean Beauty Code. I'm so excited for this video because we're talking concealer, which we know I love a concealer. We are talking Westman Atelier Concealer versus Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison so you guys can see on one eye one eye the other, because at the hefty price point that these bad Larrys are at, okay? Way too expensive for just purchasing on a whim and not knowing if you're gonna like it. So we're deep diving, we're talking about all the components, all the stuff. We're getting like really deep into it, and I'm really excited for this video. We also have, I know we have other concealers that have come out. I'm currently testing the CL one, but I would love to know down below if there are other products you want me to test, or if there are other videos you want me to do side-by-side comparisons of. Let me know down below because I'd love to hear. Also, if you have tried these concealers, what are your thoughts? Let me know down below. And yeah, I just want to jump into this video and get started. So if you're excited for this video and more videos like this, then please like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer versus Westman Atelier Concealer comparison video. Concealers, let's get into it. So we have two new concealers we're talking about. We're talking Westman Atelier Concealer and Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. They're both definitely on the expensive side, especially one, but definitely both of them on the expensive side for concealer. So we're getting into the nitty gritty. We're doing side by side kind of application. I'm going to talk to you about my thoughts about both of these. And yeah, I just want to jump right into the video. So first, we're going to talk the Westman Atelier Concealer. So this is the Westman Atelier Concealer. When I first ordered it, it was really, I don't know, it was really, really hard to pick a shade. So I ended up getting the wrong shade the first time. Then I was able to order my right shade, and I didn't have to worry about ordering another one or paying for another one. That was really nice. So their return kind of policy is really nice. And actually, they didn't make me actually physically return the other one. So I still have the other one. So we can swatch both of these. So the one that I got that I thought for sure was going to be my shade was T2. She was not. A little too dark, but it's still a beautiful shade. So this is the incorrect shade for me, a little bit too dark, especially for my face. My face is a lot lighter than like the rest of my body, but this is the shade T2. And then this, I'm gonna make sure I'm grabbing the right one. This is the shade T1. And this is my accurate shade. And I would even say I could have gone lighter. So these are the two shades that I have. Again, we have T2 on this side and T1 on this side. I felt as though picking a shade was a little bit of a challenge. I ended up, we got to the right place, but I did feel like it was a little tough. So if you can go in store to a Sephora or a Credo and you can kind of try it out that way, maybe do that, because I feel like sometimes picking concealers online, especially with undertones, and some brands will say something is more on the warm side or more on the neutral side, and really to you, for what you understand neutral to be, there can be a disconnect there. So sometimes testing it out in person is the best way to do it. But what was great was I was able to get the correct shade. So again, this is the shade T1, and the best way I like to apply this is I do like to apply it under my eyes, let it sit for a touch, not super long, let it sit for a touch, and then blend it out with my finger. And I find that over applying this is definitely a mistake, so do not over apply this. I've worn it without a eye cream and with an eye cream. I like to wear it with a really light eye cream underneath it, just because that's my personal preference. However, when I haven't worn an eye cream underneath it, it still has been fine. My preference is just to wear a little bit of a light eye cream underneath. So we're gonna apply just right here, and then we're gonna blend with our finger. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait not even maybe a full minute. We're just gonna wait a little bit, let it kind of marinate for a second, and then blend it out with our finger. So I'm gonna come back in a second and we're gonna blend it out and then talk about specs and all that jazz. Okay, we let it sit long enough, so now I'm gonna go and just blend out with my finger. And I would say that this concealer has about medium coverage. I think you can definitely build it up to be a medium plus. I wouldn't say I've ever gotten full coverage out of this, but when I have gotten almost full coverage, I didn't love how heavy it looked under my eyes. When I blended it with a brush or a sponge, you need to blend this one, in my opinion, with your fingers. So this is the shade T1. So this is what it looks like blended out. Again, I definitely could have gotten a lighter shade. Now what I want to do is I want to layer on top of it. So this product has hyaluronic acid in it. It has peptides in it. And with that, it can kind of, it does, I feel like, make your under eyes look a little bit more plumped up and look a little bit better. And I do feel like when I wear it consecutively, like days in a row, I do notice a difference in my under eyes, which is great. And the great thing about both these products, it's $48, which is very expensive. It has 16 shades, which is really nice. I do really like the way that it blends out with your finger, and I also don't find necessarily that I need to wear a powder underneath my eyes with this, because I don't find that it has a ton of creasing or anything like that. So this is it with two kind of coats of the concealer. This layers really nicely on top of itself. So you have one layer, you apply another one, and it layers really nicely. So this is the amount of coverage you can get. If you apply more product, you can obviously get more kind of coverage. For me, I feel like the sweet spot with this is to really get it to that medium coverage. You can even get like a lighter, like a light plus coverage with this. And when you get, let me get a really humbling mirror. When you get up close to a mirror and you're wearing this concealer, you're not feeling like, even with an eye cream underneath it. So just to know, I put the Live Tinted eye cream on under my eyes because that one just sinks into the skin really, really easily. And I never have any pilling or any issues with that eye cream. Now, when you get close to a mirror, you don't really see any immediate like settling into fine lines. It doesn't look very crepey or anything. What I will say is when I have blended this with a brush, so whether it was this brush here, I also have, so this is an Hourglass concealer brush. Any of my other concealer brushes, even the one that is the Makeup Forever concealer brush that I have, that's kind of, do I have it with me? I don't think I do. That Makeup Forever one, I do not like the way this concealer looks with a brush. I really don't. I think blending it with your fingers is best. And to me, that's amazing because some concealers you need to use with a brush. This one you don't. I've also blended it out with a beauty sponge. That one, I actually liked blending it out with a beauty sponge. But again, I just feel like the warmth of your finger, it like needs it to look its best. It's very, very nice. Again, hyaluronic acid. It has peptides, 16 shades, $48, which is very expensive. And it has great ingredients. It's definitely hydrating underneath the eyes, but it isn't so hydrating where you feel like it's just gonna kind of slip off your face, if that makes sense, because some concealers can be too serumy. This one does settle down. It does look very, very skin-like, which I love. And although, again, I feel like this shade, I could have gone a little bit lighter and might be a touch too on the yellow side for my skin tone, I do really enjoy the way that it wears. And once I set it with powder, if I do set it with powder, it kind of, the powder just tends to just take away that yellowness. Now, I'm not going to set with powder today because I really want you to see the concealer on its own, but I've set with powder and I've enjoyed the way that it looks. But I'm going to say something crazy. I prefer not setting the Westman Atelier Concealer with powder. I prefer it just on its own. And that's also why I like to let it sit for about let's say 40 seconds before I blend it out, because I feel like then you really 100% do not need to set it with powder. What do you guys think of what this looks like? Also, what do you think of the shade? Do you like this shade? So the other shade, again, was T2, the one that was like definitely too dark for me. And that one is definitely more on the orange side if you want to see. And then this is T1, which is definitely more on the yellow side. And I'm definitely more on the neutral side, so a perfect blend of the two. So if you mix these two together, I'll just show you, I feel like I'm more of this shade. So I have been kind of mixing them together to kind of counteract how yellow I feel like this is, especially in person. However, I still feel like the other shade is too dark. So that's what I'm going to say about that, because I know a lot of people are my skin tone that watch this. And so I would probably, if I were you, get some, it might be M3 or M4, whichever one is a little bit more neutral, I would go with that. But I am very happy with this, and I am going to use the shade T1, and I like the way that it looks a lot. So then next we're going to move on to the Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. The Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. So this is a concealer's pen. You're going to let me, I'm going to show you when I click it out, but it has kind of that same packaging as the YSL Touche Eclat. So if you've ever used that, then it's the same type of idea here. Now, this is $68. I know it is so expensive. I know that. However, it is in collaboration with the skincare company Agostina Spatter, and they have like patented skincare ingredients, and their skincare is really expensive. So when I saw that it was going to be a collaboration, I wasn't shocked with the price, just because Agostina Spatter skincare is very expensive. However, I know that it is crazy, crazy expensive, so people want to know if it's good. And it has their patented ingredient that is, I think it's called TFC8. Actually, I should look that up. Yes, it's TFC8 by Agostina Spatter, and that is their like patented super nutrient ingredient that is in their skincare. So that is kind of the price and all of that. Now let's kind of get into the actual product and picking shades. So what I will say is I actually liked the undertones of for my skin tone, the Victoria Beckham Beauty shades more. I felt like there were more neutral options for my skin tone, and there were a few options that could have worked for me. So when I was picking a shade, I actually picked wrong the first time. I picked the shade MD1, and that was a little too dark for me, especially because I lost my tan. However, the undertone is great, so I ended up getting M1, and it is a great shade. But I didn't actually have to return MD1, and I do think I have a friend I'm going to give this to, but it is great that I was able to like really easily get my correct shade. So that is something that's great about both brands, is that their returns are really easy, and you're not having to fight with stuff, because picking shades online is really, really hard, and the majority of people have to pick online. So anyways, this is the shade M1, and this is kind of just click it out. Gonna click out some. I don't want to over click this, and we're just going to apply here. And this is also one that I like to let sit for a second, so we're going to kind of treat them the same. In my opinion, this concealer, so this is the shade here, I feel like that's a nice, it's a little bit brighter and a little bit more neutral than this side, which is a little bit more on the yellow side. Now, this concealer is definitely more of a light to medium coverage. You can definitely build it up to be a touch more than medium, especially if you let the concealer sit. However, I would say it's more of a true light to medium coverage concealer. And it really just depends on how much you apply, but also if you layer on top and all of that. This claims to not crease, and I'm gonna say something crazy. It does not crease, like in any sense of that word. I was shocked. I definitely had a little bit more creasing on this side with the Westman Atelier one. This one does not crease. It's bananas, especially for the fact that it's a thinner product. This one, the Westman Atelier isn't as thin as this one. A thinner product, not creasing, is bananas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this sit for about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to go and blend it out with my finger, and we're going to talk more specs and all of that, and then do like a full compare and contrast, like talk through real quick before I kind of tell you my final thoughts and my opinions and which one I prefer and all of that. Be right back. All right, we let this sit long enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend out with my finger, and we're just going to pat it into the skin. This one disappears. The Westman Atelier also disappears, but this one disappears beyond what the Westman Atelier one does. It's actually very impressive in my opinion, just because it is it just fully disappears when you get close to the skin. It's like nothing. It truly is. It's wild. Okay, we are blended. What do you guys think? I'm going to add more concealer on top, just like I did of the Westman Atelier, but I really want you to see what it looks like just with one coat. I feel like it does a really nice job of covering my under eye circles. And even though on both sides, I have like a touch of darkness peeking through here, because this is where like the main darkness from my under eyes kind of come through on the bottom here. It did a really good job of covering it up, and I feel like when you apply the amount that I applied, first of all, it disappears into nothing, but also you do get a nice medium coverage. So I'm going to go on with a little bit more of this shade here, and I'm not gonna apply too much, but I'm gonna just apply a little bit more, and then we're just gonna blend with our finger again. Okay, so now we're fully blended out on this side with the Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. Again, that was in the shade M1. I do also have MD1. Again, I'm going to give this to somebody, but MD1 was a little bit on the darker side. I'm going to just do a little swatchy poo in the back of my hand for you. And it didn't suit for like wanting a nice, bright, youthful looking under eye. So this is the difference between the two shades. I hope you can see. So this one is the one I applied, and then this one is the one that was just, I mean, I think you can see that it is too dark. I really like the way that this concealer wears, because it legitimately does not crease, and it sets down. Both of these concealers set down really nicely. Again, it's $68, but it does, again, have that kind of exclusive ingredient that is like patented from Agostina Spatter. So it kind of, the price is there because of course it's a patented ingredient and all of that good stuff. Now there's also 16 shades in this concealer, so in that sense they are really, really similar, or not similar, the same. I actually like the undertones of the Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer more than I do the Westman Atelier, especially for my kind of skin tone area. But I do feel like the shades are flexible within both, right? Because you're kind of able to adjust. It's more just undertone wise that I struggle with, because if I can't find something in my undertone, it just is more apparent under my eyes. However, I'm definitely going to try and grab something in a lighter color and maybe a better undertone for me in the Westman Atelier one. But I really like both concealers, and when I tell you, I've never seen, I know the Westman Atelier one also doesn't crease, but I have never seen a concealer quite like the Victoria Beckham Beauty one, especially in just the coverage, in like the coverage. So again, you can go up to medium, the coverage, the way that it looks, the way that it legitimately looks like your skin. And with both of these concealers, I liked to have an eye cream underneath. However, if you don't wear an eye cream, they both worked really well. I just prefer wearing them with an eye cream. I don't know what it is. I just felt like they looked a little bit nicer under my eyes, and throughout the day looked a little bit nicer. But when I get really close here, this side, the Westman Atelier side, really doesn't look like much, and this really doesn't look like much either. It's like so impressive how they really don't look like makeup. It's wild. Now, I would love to know. I know this side over here is definitely a little too dark, and maybe not even too dark. It's just a little too yellow. However, which side do you like more? Because there's definitely a difference in the way they look and in terms of like smoothness and all of that. Now, let's kind of talk about them comparably to each other. So, in terms of creasing, like no creasing, the Victoria Beckham Beauty has the Westman Atelier one just by a little bit, but it definitely is the least creasy of the two, especially when I'm really packing it on under my eye. I felt like when I like layered powder, and also when I really was, trying to get the coverage up from medium to more medium plus to like the full coverage, what I felt like is when I set it with powder, I definitely noticed creasing for sure. And another thing that I noticed was it wasn't the worst creasing I've ever had, of course, but I did notice creasing. And so when you're kind of going heavy to kind of get that more full coverage, there is more opportunity for creasing with the Westman Atelier. Whereas with the Victoria Beckham Beauty, when I'm building it up, I don't notice any creasing at all. When it comes to layering, so if it's throughout the day and I'm like, oh, I want a little bit more concealer, or, ooh, I want to like touch up a little bit, I find that the Victoria Beckham Beauty layers nicer than the Westman Atelier. And I don't know if it's because it's a thinner product. In my opinion, I would assume I always kind of assumed before even using it that I would prefer layering the Victoria Beckham Beauty one a little bit more because it's a thinner product than the Westman Atelier, which when I was looking at the pictures and stuff, it looked like it was a little bit more substantial in terms of thickness. Now, again, the Victoria Beckham Beauty one is a little bit thinner than the Westman Atelier. There's nothing wrong with either. Both blend the best with your finger. You can use a brush if you want. I think with the Victoria Beckham Beauty one, definitely don't use a brush, in my opinion. It just works so much better with your fingers. I don't have any creasing at all, even when I layer, even when I powder with the Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. And to me, I'm going to say something crazy. It is the most unique concealer I've ever used. Because I've used the Touche Eclat, I've used the ones that, because I know there's like the more full coverage version of the Touche Eclat, so there's like, even though I do think that's getting discontinued. I could be incorrect, but either way. And so I've used those, they don't give me the same coverage, the same lack of creasing, and the same look. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but it really, it like in terms of uniqueness, to me, the Victoria Beckham Beauty wins for sure in terms of that. When it comes to wear, I would say that the Westman Atelier might, by the smallest margin, etch out the Victoria Beckham Beauty, but they both are still on by the end of the day. They still look really good. My under eyes still look amazing with both. When it comes to shade range, I feel like I prefer the Victoria Beckham Beauty just because I am more prone to like something that is more on the neutral side, and they have a lot of options in all shade options out there. However, I'm seeing more options in my shade range, but also like across the board in neutrals that I feel like are more versatile, if that makes sense. I think that they both blend the best with fingers. And I mean, you can use a brush and they look fine with a brush, but truly the only one I feel like of the two that works a little bit better with a brush is the Westman Atelier. I think that the Victoria Beckham Beauty works fine with a brush, but if I had to compare the two, I would say that the Westman Atelier etches out the Victoria Beckham Beauty in blendability with like a brush. But both blend best, in my opinion, with your fingers. And I do think that the brands recommend blending with your fingers. In terms of coverage, we have light to medium from Victoria Beckham Beauty, and from Westman Atelier, you have medium to, they say full. In my opinion, it kind of goes more, I mean, you can get it to full, but I think it's best when you kind of keep it at medium to medium plus coverage, because I think then with the amount of product you need to get it to full, you can get some creasing. Which, I mean, the more product you apply, the more creasing you have. That's kind of standard across the board, except for with the Victoria Beckham Beauty. I feel like that's not true. But in general, as a general rule, the more product you apply, the more creasing you have. Both I like to let sit for a little bit, so 30 seconds to a minute. I've even let it sit though for longer for both of them, and I've really enjoyed the additional oomph of coverage that it has given me. So both really can marinate and pump up the kind of coverage and all of that. And when I use them both around the face, I actually like them both when I use them around the face. I prefer both of them under the eyes. However, you can use them to cover up around the face. Because the Westman Atelier has more coverage, that one to me is just the better option for all around the face if you're trying to cover some hyperpigmentation or anything like that. But if I put the Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer on my face and let it sit for about 2 minutes and then I blend it out, I'm happy with the coverage. So it's all kind of about how you apply the product. But if you had to go with, oh, I want something that I can use all around the face that is going to give me nice medium to full coverage, the Victoria Beckham Beauty one is not going to be for you, because it can't get you there. It just can't. However, it can get you to medium, even medium, not fully plus, but a little bit more than medium coverage. But that's when I let them sit and marinate and kind of do their thing. I actually enjoy both of these concealers. They're super comfortable to wear underneath the eye. When I set them with powder, they're still comfortable to wear. I just don't prefer a powder with them. And even when I wear mascaras on my bottom lashes without powder with both of these, because they both kind of set down, I don't have an issue with mascara running by the end of the day, which is really, really nice. Let's talk about packaging and how much product you get. So this packaging is nice, it's hefty. It's like true Westman Atelier feeling packaging. It feels nice and hefty, but it's not so heavy that it's gonna like weigh down your bag if you're carrying it. It has a doe foot applicator that's really easy to use. I really like the applicator. It's just nice and easy. It's not too big, which I do love a big applicator, but sometimes it can just apply too much. This applies like the perfect amount of product. You get 0.2 fluid ounces with this, or wait, let me double check and make sure I'm not lying to you. Yeah, you get 2.2 fluid ounces with this concealer, and it's $48. You get 16 shades. And I mean, look how nice it looks underneath the eyes. I mean, what do you think? What do you think of I know the shade isn't perfect, but beyond the shade, what do you think of the coverage and all of that? Now let's move on to the Victoria Beckham Beauty. Now, the Victoria Beckham Beauty is, again, it's a pen. It does feel, I mean, it feels like if you ever held another pen type concealer like this, it feels like all those other ones. So there isn't anything that is wildly different. Of course, the color and all of that of the packaging is different. What I will say is the amount of product you get, I feel like is going to upset some people. Okay, so the amount of product you get is, I need to double check this because I feel like I read it wrong. Did I? No. You get 0.08 fluid ounces. So you get 0.21 fluid ounces with the Westman Atelier. You get 0.08 with the Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer. So I know that that is a stark difference, especially because the Victoria Beckham Beauty is $20 more, because the Victoria Beckham Beauty is $68 and the Westman Atelier is $48. So that is, I feel like, bananas. Now, I really like both these concealers. They are really great. I feel like they're comparable in the fact that they both have peptides and other great ingredients for your under eyes. They're great that you don't necessarily have to wear an eye cream with them. I just prefer to wear eye cream with them. That's just how I prefer to wear them. They're both blendable with your finger. They both have 16 shades in their shade range. And they're versatile shades, I will say. Again, I just prefer the shades in the Victoria Beckham Beauty one a little bit more. However, they're both like a nice hefty shade range, and I feel like they have kind of equal amount of shades per section of kind of shade, whether it's light, like deep, medium tan, medium light. They kind of have an equal amount of shades, which I really, really enjoy. Again, the prices are just $20 in difference, and you get significantly less product with the Victoria Beckham Beauty. Now, I know I'm going to be asked which one do I prefer, and I want you to guess down below which one I prefer before I tell you. Okay, did you guess? Okay, I prefer the Victoria Beckham Beauty one. Okay, and I understand. If you know what, come on, arrest me, because that's crazy for the amount of product you get, for the price, all of that. To me, because it's one of the most unique concealers I've ever used, and I know that sounds crazy, but just the way it dries down, the way that it layers beautifully, the way that it lasts all day, the fact that I can, when I'm having super, super dark circles and I'm having like darkness peeking through, and I just want to take just a dot extra right here, let it sit for 30 seconds and blend it out, and I feel like it basically is completely covering the darkness that I want gone. Maybe it's not full coverage, of course, but it's like completely getting rid of that darkness, to me is really impressive. And it doesn't like move product when you layer it. I know it's super expensive. You don't get that much product. However, formula-wise, if I had to pick, I would go with the Victoria Beckham Beauty. I would just want more product in the component. However, I really, really enjoy the Westman Atelier. I think the coverage is beautiful. The Westman Atelier, in my opinion, is a little bit more versatile in the fact that you can like build it up to full coverage, right? I prefer it to kind of stay to the medium plus coverage. However, if you get it right with the blending, especially with your fingers, and you kind of build up a product a little bit quicker than letting it sit and then deciding to build it up, you definitely won't have as much of an issue with the creasing as I had. And yeah, but I really enjoy both of these. I'm going to be using both of these a ton. They're going to be on my vanity because they are super expensive, but also B, I really, really enjoy them. And although I prefer the formula of the Victoria Beckham Beauty one a little bit more, I think the bang for your buck is definitely in the Westman Atelier, but they're both expensive. I wish you were able to like go to a store and try them both side by side, because for $68, you want to be able to kind of try it out. But what is nice is if you don't like it, or you don't feel like it's worth it, and you do get it, it's really easy to return or to just let them know that you're dissatisfied, and you can kind of get your money back and all of that through both their websites, which is really, really nice. And yeah, that is it for this video. That is it for my Victoria Beckham Beauty Concealer versus Westman Atelier Concealer kind of comparison video. I would love to know down below, which one do you like better? Which one do you think you're going to try? And yeah, I just want to know down below, what kind of are your thoughts on the concealer, and what do you prefer of the two? Again, I do know Westman Atelier is a little bit too dark. However, I still think it looks great, and especially if I set with powder, I'm in a way better spot. If I use a brightening powder like the Tower 28, I'm in a good spot. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.